Evans and Christian Fuchs in at left-back. Now, we're not quite sure how the midfield's going to line up, but in there will be Nompolis Mendy and Hamza Chowdhury, along with Damari Gray, Alexi Perez and Mark Albrighton, probably all supporting Kelechi Iheanacho up front. The subs tonight for Leicester City are sub-goalkeeper Danny Ward, Ben Chilwell, Shagla Soyuncu, Yuri Tielemans, James Maddison, Harvey Barnes and Wilfred Ndidi. Jamie Vardy, Ricardo Pereira and Dennis Pratt have all been given the night off. They are not in the 18 this evening. West Ham have also made multiple changes, 7 in all from their defeat to Crystal Palace on Boxing Day. They line up with Fabianski in goal. He's back from a thigh injury. Frederick's back from suspension at right back. Diop and Balbuena are their defensive two, with Masuaku at left back deputising for the suspended Aaron Cresswell. In midfield, they've got Carlos Sanchez and Declan Rice at the base of it. 3 ahead of them in Pablo Fornals, Manuel Lanzini and Felipe Anderson. Sebastian Aller starts up front for the Hammers this evening, so plenty of changes there.
Thank you very much, James. Yes, welcome again to the London Stadium with me, Dan Bates, on Matchday Live here for West Ham United against Leicester City. This stadium will be forever associated with that incredible Olympic Games in 2012, and I'm sure from a Leicester City point of view today, Matthew Elliott, that after the last couple of games, Brendan Rodgers will be reminding his side that the Premier League campaign is a marathon rather than a sprint.
Did you just call me Matthew then?
I did, I've done that before, haven't I?
Can you stop that, please? Only my mother and Gerald call me that. Even Mickey Adams.
Maybe that's where I've got it from,
get away
Gerald.
with that. Yes, well, I've forgotten your question, Dan.
It's a marathon, not a sprint, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And obviously that's where Brendan's looking at it in that context, isn't he? But he's caught everyone by surprise, us included. Changes, yes, to that degree. A wholesale 9 has caught everyone by surprise, I think, hasn't it? And I don't know, I think there'll be mixed views on it. Certainly initially, as always, the result is dependent on people's emotions, but time will tell.
A couple of words on that team news. Brendan Rodgers has just done his pre-match interviews. He said that Jamie Vardy's wife has had a child today, so he's with her, and a big congratulations to them. So yes, big congratulations to Jamie Vardy from everyone at Leicester City. I'm sure he's had a little girl today, so that's where Jamie Vardy is.
Excellent.
Ricardo has also felt his hamstring, so that's a precautionary one for the right back, Ricardo. Other than that, didn't say too much else, but those two, obviously, you could say two of the main standouts that have been missing due to those changes, but they're 2 reasons why anyway.
Yeah, there's 2 reasons. Brendan may well have omitted them anyway, by looking at the approach that he's taken. We'll probably never quite know, but yeah, it is a surprise. I mean, a lot of people before the game were asking me in the media area, I've heard Vardy might not be playing. I don't know, I haven't heard that one. I'd be surprised if it was, but there's at least a couple of reasons already that we've spoken about why he's not here today. But the thing which we said, over recent times, and justifiably so, is that Leicester do have genuine depth in their squad. I was speaking not long before, just now, with Mickey and Jerry saying, personally, I agreed with the wide players could be mixed up, stroke changed. Definitely, perhaps one in midfield and Fuchs possibly in at fullback. Mr. Reliable, what you're getting from him 100%, there's no doubts there. But he's gone a step or 2 further as Brendan, but he's got faith in his squad, quite clearly. I think probably out of all of them, the biggest surprise is seeing Mendy back in the fold, because he hasn't been in the equation hardly at all throughout the campaign. Almost a forgotten man. Talk of him going out on loan, etc., possibly leaving the club altogether. Here he is, back starting in a Premier League fixture. Hopefully it hasn't caught him too much by surprise and he's ready for action.
Yeah, 9 changes for Brendan Rodgers, but as you've just underlined there, Matt, that the strength is there, the strength and depth is there in this Leicester City squad, and it was obviously going to be used. Leicester had gone all those games, hadn't they, through that winning run. I think they'd gone 6 in a row at one point without making a single change to their starting 11, so the squad was obviously, at times this season, going to have to be used, and it's been used today. We're yet to see how successfully it is, but you still look at the 11 that Leicester City have put out today, and it's a strong one.
Oh yeah, without doubt. I mean, probably Mendy aside, there's a case for any of those players starting any given Premier League game. Hamza Chowdhury, at one stage earlier in the season was probably never quite on a par in terms of recognition with Ndidi, but it was almost a flip of the coin on some occasions, which one would play, if not both. But yeah, they're all fully fledged Premier League players, aren't they? There's some more experienced than others. But I think now the actual team sheet itself is out in the open, the next interesting thing to consider is the formation that Leicester strike. When he's played a different system from the 4-3-3, he's gone with the diamond in midfield, works to varying degrees, but I don't think he'll apply that with the personnel he's got this afternoon. It looks to me pretty much like a 4-4-2 really, 4-4-1-1 if you want a split striker, possibly Perez and Iheanacho working off each other, all right on one side, Gray the other, and then you've got the two holders there in Mendy and Chowdhury, haven't you, in midfield, nice and solid, first and foremost away from home, but still with enough attacking intent to cause problems.
The only thing that maybe 4-2-3-1, maybe Damari Gray in a more central role in behind Iheanacho. We've seen him come on a few times and play that role, haven't we, Damari Gray? Or as you say, 4-4-2 or 4-4-1-1. Yeah. We'll probably only really find out as soon as they line up.
Could well be, yeah. Equal argument for that. So he's got that flexibility, he's got variation within the personnel he's got there out on the pitch, never mind on the bench. But I mean, some people will be probably up in arms about it, to tell you the truth. Some people are like, whoa, what's going on? But let's wait and see how things develop first.
Yeah, one of the men that played less than 48 hours ago against Liverpool is James Maddison. He's on the bench this evening for Leicester City. He did speak after that defeat to Liverpool, though. He was obviously very disappointed, but he was previewing today's game at the same time.
Yeah, we'll go there trying to win the game. It's a very quick turnaround, obviously. After tonight, we'll travel straight to London tomorrow. It's a very, very quick turnaround, so I'm guessing there'll be changes and the whole squad quality will have to come into play. But we'll be ready as well as we can. We'll recover tomorrow and be in the best possible shape to try and win that game. Yeah.
He previewed exactly what had happened. He said that the whole squad would have to be used, there would be changes, but no matter what team Leicester have come here with, Matt, they're coming here to win the game. There was a chance that Leicester maybe would have been playing a team that were in the bottom three by the time this game kicked off. Results elsewhere have meant that hasn't happened. West Ham still in that 17th spot in the division, so no matter what, Leicester will be coming here hopefully targeting a victory.
Of course, as they would in any Premier League game, but West Ham's poor form of late and their lowly position doesn't mean they're going to lay down and roll over for the visitors this afternoon stroke evening. It's they have good, decent players within their squad and their team, don't they? A number of changes for West Ham, by the way, as well, which James will probably come on to more detail later on. But yeah, confidence is low for West Ham, understandably so. They do seem a little bit flat, and Leicester supporters will think, this is an opportunity to get back on the winning trail with a convincing performance. But it may well turn out to be that way. They may have to dig in and scrap for everything they can get today as well. But in a lot of ways, when you look at it, I think there's initial surprise at the drastic sort of nature of the changes. But then when you look at it and consider it, you think, well, hang on a minute. James Maddison has just mentioned there about the shortness of the turnaround between one game to next, and why not put those fresher, more possibly energetic players there? Who've not just had a busy schedule of late, the regular first teamers, but over the course of the season. There has been squad usage, but Leicester have played the same team, I think, more, or certainly not far off as much as any other team. So there's a lot of minutes under the belt for a lot of players. Making that change, might just be the right thing to do at this juncture of the season.
Well, when you look at the facts of it, Matt, this is Leicester City's 8th game in December.
Yeah, exactly.
In 1 month, that is, on average, nearly a game every 4 days, isn't it? That's a lot of football.
Yeah, it's heavy. It is heavy going, and the intensity of football these days as well, and also not looking for excuses and reasons, but to a degree, like the intensity of the spotlight that's on there. It's all consuming these days. They don't have too much time to switch off and get away from it. It's everywhere they go. So, just a little bit of light relief, or being taken away from that pressured situation might not do them any harm either. But I'm sure the majority of them would have been ready to go if asked. But Brendan Rodgers has decided, in his judgment, with the assistance of his analysts and backroom staff, that this is the right way to approach tonight's fixtures.
And after those games, we've managed to go 11 minutes without mentioning the 4-0 the other evening, which was obviously disappointing, but as we've been underlining, less than 48 hours ago, and there will be natural disappointment. Of course there will from that. There'll be natural disappointment from the Manchester City game as well, but when you were previewing with the pre-match pint team earlier, you said those two defeats have come to probably the two best football clubs and football teams in Europe at the moment.
Yeah,
so there has to be some context taken from that.
Oh, without a doubt. The players are not daft, they'll be aware of that, but also there's another reason maybe for putting the boys in that he has, because although it's a squad game and we're all in it together and all that, not many of them were directly involved in that. So the fresh players coming in, all of a sudden it is a clean slate. There's no hangover, if you like, mentally or physically, from those two encounters. So all of a sudden you can start seeing even more reasons why Brendan's gone the way he has. Again, as always, results dictate and proof will be in the pudding to see whether he's right or wrong. But those two games, listen, little bit of a blow, little bit of a dose of reality maybe, because there's a lot of talk, and as much as Leicester want to play it down, Leicester players, manager, you can't help but maybe get a little bit over-enthused, because everyone's telling you, you're going to be Champions League, not contenders, but you're definite candidates. You're challenging for the league. You're chasing Liverpool. If you can turn them over, all these ifs that haven't become a reality, and now it's a little bit not back down to earth, but it's just a little check, wasn't it? It was a little, okay, you're a good side. Well, don't be getting carried away with yourself. Not that they were, but if there was any danger of that's been put to one side, hasn't it? Because those two, Man City were good, Liverpool were ridiculous. I think Liverpool probably surprised themselves how good they were on the night. But they're not that good every week, but that is the sort of level they can reach. And that's what Leicester are contending to do, aspiring to be. But they're doing a fine job of trying to be progressive. And things are still very positive in Leicester City's situation.
Well, they were very much the sentiments that were being echoed on LCFC Radio's post-match coverage after that game against Liverpool, where journalist Rob Tanner and former City defender Jerry Taggart said there's absolutely no cause for concern after that Liverpool result.
We've got to realise how far this team has come in 10 months under Brendan Rodgers to be that side that went on that fantastic winning streak. The last couple of games against Man City and Liverpool has just shown really how much work is still to be done. This Liverpool team aren't an overnight sensation. This has been going on for 2 or 3 years now, with Jurgen Klopp developing and growing, and they're getting the confidence, and the young players are getting experience. Leicester are just at the start of their journey, really. They're 10 months in. So there's a big reality check, really, in terms of how far they've come in such a short space of time.
I think that's an important point Rob makes. I think, when you look back at how long Jurgen Klopp's actually been in the job, and yes, he's reached back-to-back European Champions League finals, but he's shifted people out, he's brought people in, and Brendan needs to be given the time. And this is a young team. I think sometimes that gets overlooked. That this is a young, improving Leicester City side that needs time to develop, and Brendan Rodgers needs a few windows to maybe get in the players he wants. But, they say that they're, Boxing Day night, 8 o'clock kickoff, prime time football, the game of the festive season, whatever you want to call it, Leicester City are right in the middle of it.
Which is exactly the point that has been made again and again this season, particularly in recent weeks, Matt, that and you were just making it a couple of minutes ago, those games against Manchester City and Liverpool, there was a big onus on Leicester and a real excitement that they might get a result in either of those games against the two clubs that are that good because of how well Leicester have been playing this season, because of where they are in the league. They're second in the Premier League still, which is a staggering achievement, and exactly what they were saying. Yes, there's disappointment after those games. Some fans may be getting carried away with the defeats, but you've got to look at everything that goes with it and take some perspective of just how good Leicester have been this season and where exactly they are in the league.
Yeah, very much so. That's plainly obvious, isn't it? Anyone at the start of the season, at the halfway point of this campaign, was given the opportunity of Leicester being second, you just snap the hand off, don't you? Quite clearly. And it's amazing where they are. Consider the amount of money that's been spent, the size of the clubs that they're up against, the profile of the Premier League. This is the place to be, and Leicester City are sitting in second spot. I was going to say sitting pretty. It's not quite as shiny as it was 2-3 games ago. But what a wonderful achievement in the first half of the season. If they can, compete again like they have in the second or anything close to it, to get into the Champions League spot, with, what more can you ask for all things considered? And people were saying, oh, it'd be nice if they could pressure the top six. Then people were saying, some people they thought a little bit brave and courageous, saying Leicester will break into the top six. No one was really saying they're going to smash into the top four like they have. Incredible achievement so far. If they can continue it, great stuff.
Yeah, it's an extremely exciting second half to the season coming up, and that's what Johnny Evans has been saying. He says there's plenty to be optimistic about heading into the second half of the season.
Over a course of a season, we know that the improvements that we've made from last season. We've got to be humble in terms of how far we think we can push on, but there's a real sort of determination to improve even more, and hopefully in the second half of the season we can show that. And obviously in the cup competitions, that is something that before the season started, that we earmarked as potential route to success for us, and we'll be giving everything we can in those cup competitions to try and get the finals and compete for silverware.
Leicester hoping to get into the Carabao Cup final, of course. Those games against Aston Villa take place in January. Villa themselves are currently losing 3-0 away at Vicarage Road against Watford. Huge game at the bottom of the table there. Nigel Pearson's Watford there winning 3-0. Elsewhere it's Southampton 1, Crystal Palace 1 and Newcastle 1, Everton 2. So Carlo Ancelotti starting well with Everton there. So both teams who have changed managers there seemingly doing well, while certainly out this afternoon. And incidentally, it finished Brighton 2-0. They beat Bournemouth earlier on this afternoon. Matt, Johnny was talking there about this second half to the season, and there's so much that's happening still in the league to be excited about, and elsewhere as well. There's still hopefully a long FA Cup run to come. There's that huge Carabao Cup semi-final against Aston Villa, who in recent weeks you've seen their form really struggle, so you'd think that there's a really good chance to make the final of a big cup competition.
Oh, without a doubt, there's plenty to motivate the lads, that's for sure, and the manager, to keep them hungry, to keep them inspired, to keep them at the top of their game, looking forward to the next game, and keeping themselves in that team, because they know, as the evidence is there today, the competition is fierce. Keep them on their toes, because they all want to be as big a part of it as possible. And there's plenty going to go on in the second half of the season, isn't it? For the reasons you've just mentioned there. The FA Cup hasn't even started yet, which brings another ingredient, doesn't it, into the mix. But listen, the spotlight of the last couple of games is, and rightly so, has diverted any sort of attention or focus on the fact that Leicester are in the semi-final of the Cup. That can wait. It's going to come round pretty quickly though, and when it does, you'd like to think Leicester will attack it with all the venom they've got. And at this moment in time, all things considered, you fancy them strongly. But, like we say, that's for the future. But today is important. More important than it was probably envisaged 3 games ago. And a result the result today for Leicester, even better, 3 points, a convincing performance. Just settle a few nerves a little bit, just calm things down a bit. Leicester can get back into that lovely flowing rhythm that they showed at earlier and mid parts of the first half of the season.
Which is frustrating that there has been that little niggly bit of doubt because of those last two results. And arguably the last three as well in the league, if you include that Norwich game at King Power Stadium, which of the three probably the most frustrating in terms of the result and what happened there. But we've used the word perspective a lot already on the show this evening. That it's just about that. It's just about Leicester being second in the Premier League. If they were offered that coming to West Ham United on the 28th of December, they'd have snapped your hand off, wouldn't they, at the beginning of the season?
But, yeah, exactly. And I think, there's the thing is with this team as well. There's room for improvement. We knew that before the Liverpool-Man City games. Now there's probably even more room than we realised. You look at certain areas and think, okay, maybe that needs reinforcing or a little bit of adjustment, etc., and a few little bits of tinkering with individuals' games, etc., and just extend our approach, whatever Brendan Rodgers sees fit. But it's but also there's enough quality in this team, and they've provided it often enough over a long period of time, or a reasonably long period of time, i.e. 17 games of the season, to suggest it's not just a little phase that they were going through and things were going their way. They've dominated games pretty regularly, and decent scorelines. They've crushed oppositions at times. They've dug out results. We talked about the flexibility and the different ways that they can win games already. And as Jerry mentioned earlier, it is a young team. Don't forget that at all. There's so much mileage in this team. But there'll just be a little realisation over the last couple of weeks. And the good players that they are, they'll benefit from that. They'll pick up and look at where they can improve individually, as a group. And it will help them drive onwards, I feel. But no, this team are not just... They've got too much ability. They've been too good at times in the season to let it just drift away. Like I said earlier, a few times in the season, Leicester beating Southampton 9-0. Mid-table teams don't win 9-0. Leicester deservedly where they are, and with good reason, and I believe they'll continue to be so.
The Leicester City and West Ham United players have just come out onto the pitch for their warm-ups. I mean, it is a tough place to come, this, of course, but when the West Ham players came out after the Leicester players, I was expecting, there's already quite a lot of fans inside here, Matt. I was expecting a big reception. I was expecting them on their feet clapping them in. There was very, very little, and I guess that's just an indication of the way that West Ham are playing at the moment, Matt, and the feeling towards West Ham from the fans. They will be naturally disappointed with the way that the team are playing at the moment.
Well, I think it's the accumulation of a long period of negativity, isn't it, for the club, for one reason or another, going back to the change of ground and the disgruntlement there, wasn't there, in many quarters in terms of the supporters, and for different reasons. They're not entirely satisfied with the behaviour stroke actions of the board, are they? I don't think there's 100% trust between supporters and directors. Management, there were questions as well, aren't there? When Pellegrini first came in, I think the majority of supporters were split, probably. Majority of supporters were slightly thinking, that doesn't make sense, does it? The majority was split. But you get my drift. But there were mixed views, weren't there? Some were happy that some of his experience came to the club. Others thinking, what is he going to bring? The other managers...
The majority were unsure.
Right, okay. Yeah, let's go with that. Pick me out of a hole there. But and that's proved to be the case, hasn't it? The latter, really, because I'm not sure what the identity of West Ham is and how much does he motivate the players, etc. I don't know. He doesn't. He gives a certain...
He's a Premier League winner, though.
Yeah, exactly. But
and you can't argue with that.
He had some top-class Premier League players under his disposal, or at his disposal, didn't he? So, listen, I know a question that's been in the game for many decades, and you know, for a reason. But just looking at, not just laying the blame at him, you know, he's got the mentality of the players, the type of players they sign. You know, are they suitable for the mix at West Ham? And I don't know. And, you know, they're having a struggle, so there's not that much for the fans to cheer about, really. And you can only get behind the team for so long before you lose a little bit of enthusiasm. But one thing's for sure, if West Ham take the lead, there will be a huge roar here this evening, because they soon turn. They're pretty changeable, aren't they? You know, they can be down in the dumps, West Ham supporters, and next minute, you know, up and ferocious. And going back to what we were saying earlier, I don't think they can moan about it. I mean, it's just using excuses at the stadium. I think it's hugely impressive. Okay, you're a distance from the pitch. It's not your orthodox viewing point, but more of a continental feel, as I said before. But it's a wonderful place to play football and watch it.
One man that had a great record against West Ham, he scored here last season, is of course Jamie Vardy. He's not in the starting 11 for Leicester City. His wife has given birth today to a baby girl, so congratulations to him. He's not in the squad, so big onus then on the two men that are up front, Kelechi Iheanacho and Jose Perez. We don't know how Leicester might line up, whether they're up front as a two, whether there's a one and one behind, or one of those is maybe on the wing, but there's a big onus on those two and a big opportunity for those two as well this evening.
An opportunity, yes, yeah, maybe not in terms of replacing Jamie Vardy, but imprinting themselves on the manager's mind, yeah, making an impression in that respect. First and foremost, get out there, get some game time. A few of the players could do with a little bit of a boost, and now's as good an opportunity as any, isn't it? If you've got something to prove to the manager, go and make your point. Opportunities are sometimes few and far between, and when you get them, you've got to grab them with both hands. But yeah, whichever role Perez plays, or Gray, Albrighton even, although Rodgers will be aware exactly what he's going to get pretty much from Albrighton. Iheanacho definitely. You know, they've got to adjust pretty quickly, got to get back into a rhythm. And as more often than not, when players have come in, have done generally.
They are quality players, and they have proved themselves time and time again in the Premier League that they are quality players.
No, exactly. Each one of those four, Iheanacho probably less so than the others, but has got a genuine, and they have been in that position, you know, a genuine case for being selected in Leicester's strongest team on any given Premier League match day. Iheanacho, he's slightly unfortunate in the way that Leicester play, and the fact that they only have that one sole striker, really. You've got two wide forwards in Perez and Barnes, or whoever it is, Albrighton, Gray. But good as Jamie Vardy, not getting in ahead of Jamie Vardy, and you don't need me to tell you why. But so it's, you know, been a waiting game for him. It's been difficult for him, because when he has come on, he hasn't always excelled, but of late he's done okay. So there'll be a few groans and grumbles, I'm sure, about the team. Let's see what pans out.
Yes, changes for both Leicester City and hosts West Ham United this evening. Let's get a recap of our teams with our commentator, James Fielden.
Yeah, 9 changes for Leicester City in total from the Liverpool game the other night. Only Kasper Schmeichel and Johnny Evans remain. A full debut at right back for James Justin. Wes Morgan takes the captain's armband at centre-half alongside Evans, and Christian Fuchs comes in at left-back. There's a first start since the 3rd of February for Nampalys Mendy alongside Hamza Chowdhury. Ahead of those two, Damari Gray, Jose Perez and Mark Albrighton. Kelechi Iheanacho in attack for the Foxes this evening. West Ham also making changes, 7 in all. The first starts in September for Łukasz Fabianski, their goalkeeper, who's been out with injury. Fredericks, Diop, Balbuena and Masuaku make up their back four. Sanchez and Rice sitting in midfield. Ahead of them are Felipe Anderson, Pablo Fornals and Manuel Lanzini. Sebastian Haller, signed for around £45 million in the summer, starts in attack. 5 goals for him so far this season.
Thank you very much, James. We've got plenty more to come here on Matchday Live ahead of kick-off, which is, of course, at 5:30. We'll hear from former QPR and Manchester United midfielder Paul Parker, as well as both managers Brendan Rodgers and Manuel Pellegrini.
Right back.
You're listening to LCFC Radio.
The government's mistakenly published the addresses of more than 1,000 recipients of New Year honours. Sir Elton John and Ben Stokes are among those whose information went online. Sky's home editor Jason Farrell says the blunder could trigger safety concerns.
Especially if you're a senior police officer or you work for the Ministry of Defence, you don't want your address being out there. I mean, if you're a celebrity, that's one thing, and you don't want people to know your address, but there are certain people who have security issues around them.
The Cabinet Office says the document was taken down as soon as possible. A car bomb outside a tax collection centre in Somalia has killed more than 70 people. A checkpoint in the capital, Mogadishu, was the target. A pedestrian is in hospital after being hit by a fire engine on a 999 call in Manchester. The 41-year-old man has serious injuries. With train fares rising this coming week, campaigners are calling for a radical overhaul of Britain's railways. Ministers insist they're bringing in reforms that put passengers first. That's the latest. I'm Elizabeth Secker.
Here's the chance for Albrighton. Time to volley in! Leicester City have a second goal, and they have 1 foot in the quarter-finals of the Champions League.
Your place for all the big moments. You're listening to Matchday Live on LCFC Radio.
Yes, welcome back to LCFC Radio and Matchday Live here at the London Stadium with me, Dan Bates, and Matthew Elliott sat alongside me. He told me off the corner, Matthew, earlier, so I thought I'd rub it in for you there.
I might stick one on you.
We've talked about West Ham and their team and how both sides have made changes, but just a moment ago that the television cameras were focused on a certain number 8 for West Ham's Felipe Anderson, and he is the type of player that in any team will cause any other team trouble.
Well, when he's on his game, yes. A little bit of a luxury player, I think he's considered, isn't he? But with ability, without doubt, yeah. Just producing it regularly, isn't it? And I mean, you're looking at West Ham's team, then they made 7 changes, and some would say it's making them stronger. Because there's been sort of a little bit of a change in approach from Pellegrini. He's gone for sort of solid more than spectacular. That hasn't worked, so they've gone even flatter a little bit, really, as is the atmosphere. And now he's sort of re-changed it up again, whether it's down to fatigue or a different type of fatigue in terms of being tired of the performances. I don't know, but for whatever reason he's made the changes. If that side clicks, there's quite an attractive attacking emphasis about it. It depends whether they're able to show the sort of form that they're capable of, but on paper that's not bad. 11, it's not an 11 you would suggest that should be sitting 17th in the table, but for whatever reason they're not being able to produce it collectively. So if Leicester can get into them and upset them a little bit, impress themselves on the game, give themselves every chance, because the confidence is low within that starting team, even though there's quite a bit of talent.
Well, let's hear from a man who watches West Ham most weeks. That's former QPR and Manchester United defender Paul Parker. He's now the summariser for BBC Radio London, and he says the atmosphere here hasn't been great in recent weeks at the London Stadium.
It's been very low. It's been low with the players. You can see it just by the way they play, the fans as well. I live among West Ham fans, and disillusioned. Obviously all the talk now, because it's a modern day talk, is to change the manager. They're looking every game the manager's at 90 minutes away from losing his job, which doesn't guarantee anything in today's football now, but that's what happens. That's what it's become like now here, and it's just a shame. They got, in my opinion, got a lovely stadium. Everything around's built around the opportunity to be successful, but the main bit of being successful is it's got to happen on the pitch as well. They need something in West Ham. They at one point you suddenly thought the season was going to turn around and Europe was going to be on the agenda. Now at the moment it's way off mark. At the moment it's just getting some form of consistency, and if it's going to start any time, you want it to start over the Christmas period, because if you go through the Christmas period and not get get a win, then it makes it very, very difficult in January, where there's at least 2 FA Cup games. Well, it could be 2 FA Cup games or weekend spare. So there's not many Premier League games as such to go straight at and get points.
Yeah, Paul was underlining there, Matt, that, and I know you were speaking to him before the game. So did you play against each other a lot?
Not a lot, no. I'm not even sure I did actually play against him, because I think he was playing at a Premier League level, like, sort of a little bit before me, wasn't he? Our careers would have crossed. Not sure our actual paths did. Good lad though. Not a bad player either. But yeah, it was good fun. Nice and relaxed, having a chat, etc. But it feels like it was an ex-teammate rather than someone I didn't even play against. It's just the old players' union and all that, isn't it?
He was talking about West Ham and about the atmosphere here that hasn't been great, about Manuel Pellegrini as well, that there's a feel amongst the fans towards him that exactly you were saying earlier, that there's a lot of doubts at the moment.
Yeah, well, he would know, to be fair. He said his wife's a West Ham fan, all his family and mates are West Ham. He's not, but he sees quite a few games, and gets a good feel for how things are going. And without doubt, that's the image that he presented, wasn't it? That things are not well, but we knew that already. You know, we read the papers, we listen to the radio, we look at the league table, and West Ham haven't been, I don't know, they haven't been cohesive, have they? They haven't been at one for a number of seasons now, really. And quite a bit of money's been spent here as well, and you know, they're expecting a little bit more. They had aspirations for similar to what Leicester are achieving, perhaps not to that degree, but you know, there was talk West Ham, Leicester, Everton, Wolves maybe, but okay, Europa League campaign might affect them, seemingly not, especially after yesterday's result. But West Ham have been the biggest disappointment out of that collection of teams, haven't they? And they've fallen well short of par.
Why do you think that has been? There's been a lot of the teams, because the league at the moment is just so condensed, or maybe it's ever so slightly spreading out, but there are times when there weren't many points at all. There's only 7 between 10th and the relegation zone.
Yeah.
Because it's condensed, that means that 2 wins that were draws or 2
I get your point. I know what you're saying.
losses actually really does propel you right up there. And I know that, having friends that are West Ham fans, they've said that they've been unlucky on a lot of occasions where they really should have won games, and maybe there have been individual errors at the back or goalkeeping wise that have cost them points, which, if you look, haven't gone that way and had gone West Ham's way, they'd be right up there at the other end of the table in the top half. But that's any club.
Well, I was just going to say,
exactly
a few clubs might be saying the same, wouldn't they? You know, we were unlucky there, we could have done this, we should have done that, but we haven't. And whether it's individual errors, you know, that's a player not being good enough, basically. You know, good players keep those mistakes to an absolute minimum, don't they? But I don't know. It's difficult to pin any one thing on the reason why West Ham are struggling. One thing I look at just from the outside is that the recruitment that they make, decent enough players in terms of as individuals, and you know, might have a bit of ability, etc., and they've done it in a certain country and at a certain time, but it doesn't seem like any real method in the players that they bring in. It just seems, oh, he's not bad, we can get him for a decent amount of money, that'll keep the supporters happy, we're showing a bit of willing, let's get him. Now, whether that is the case or not, I don't know. That's how it seems from the outside. And they just sort of put them together collectively into a melting pot and hope that something comes out that's, you know, agreeable, shall we say. And very rarely is that the case. There's got to be a method behind it and a thinking behind it. And even then, it doesn't always work out. But at the moment, it just seems a little bit of a jumble. Then a manager goes, and there's another little bit of player turnover. And who's in charge of recruitment, I don't know. These days, it's normally a collective, isn't it? A number of people. But I don't know. I don't know what West Ham sort of approach is, their style of play now, it's just a bit middle of the road. It's not one or the other. And that can be confusing for the players themselves.
And you look though at their recent results, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So in the last 13 games, they've only won twice in 13 games in all competitions, which for a club of West Ham's size, stature, the stadium they have, it isn't good enough, is it?
No, and in the middle of that, they've chucked in an away victory at Chelsea, which you didn't see coming at all at the time. But yeah, I think defeats and weak defeats as well, isn't it? And well, looking back at that one, I've just seen a fixture there. I mean, that one stands out to me. Oxford 4, West Ham 0. Now, okay, changes, weak team, whatever, they put out. You've got a squad of 25 Premier League players to go lose 4-0. It's one thing losing, okay, Oxford on the night, on a roll, and it's their cup final, etc. To lose 4-0. What's going on? What's going on? And that sets the alarm bells ringing when you see things like that. And they don't seem to, well, they were struggling a little bit before, but they haven't recovered from that, as a squad. But I don't know, it's been mentioned before about the lack of pace there in the team. There was Snodgrass and Noble, isn't it? And even Declan Rice is not, decent player he is. He's not going to stretch teams, whatever. But they've changed that today. There's a little bit of pace and mobility about the team there, to an extent at least. And I don't know. Yeah, like I say, for me it seems like players are coming in with no real thought behind it. It's not a platform or a structure within the team. It's just sort of a team of individuals at the moment that haven't been brought together.
Well, let's hear from their manager then, Manuel Pellegrini. He says he's not been too disappointed with the way that they've been playing, but that they must improve defensively.
Yes, of course. I see that is a matter that we need urgently to improve, because we lost too many points at home. I think that we have just one of the last 5 games. We now have to play 2 games in a row. I hope that we can start with beating Leicester. We know it's a difficult game against a good team, but I think that our team is in a moment that they are not playing bad, but we must be more concentrated in defense.
We're just showing us the big screens here inside West Ham. I think they're doing their top 10 West Ham goals of the decade. Number 3 was Mark Noble at King Power Stadium a couple of seasons ago, a brilliant volley. We've just seen number 2 now, which was Dimitri Payet, who incidentally was also number 5, an unbelievable free kick at Crystal Palace. I'll be very surprised.
And 8, 9 and 10 and number 1 probably.
I was about to say, I'll be very surprised if Payet isn't number 1. Oh, it's given to Andy Carroll, an overhead kick.
What's this, in the last decade?
Yeah, but Payet there, he's a player that, yes, he may have left on acrimonious terms with the fans and everything here at West Ham, but he lit up the Premier League, didn't he, for that season that he was here. And I think West Ham fans are so disappointed when he left, and maybe he himself, that type of calibre of player, hasn't been replaced here.
Well, they're few and far between players of that quality. I mean, amazing how he came to the Premier League, performed how he did, but he wasn't a young whippersnapper, was he, when he came into the league? Where has he been hiding before that? And he hasn't disappeared off the face of the earth. Is he Marseille now? Is it
Marseille, and then he came to West Ham for what a couple of years, and then was back to Marseille again. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like Marseille is obviously a sizable and very decent club, but his ability, I mean, maybe he didn't have the all-round game, the complete footballer that people are looking for in terms of the other side of the game. But it wasn't a flash in the pan either, was it? Every game you were expecting him to produce something, and more often than not he did. It was a joy to watch.
Well, he propelled them in that season. They did brilliantly in the end in the Premier League. And obviously Leicester stole all the headlines, didn't they, in the 2015-2016 season. I'm just trying to scroll down to the table. They finished 7th. They qualified for the Europa League, which probably went unnoticed because of how well Leicester had done. But that season,
it's got to be their best season.
They've proved that
they
can do that. Then this club, West Ham, it was their last one at Upton Park, and they just haven't quite been able to kick on and get to the same levels that we've seen them since they've moved here to the London Stadium.
Yeah, and before though, really, when they were at the bowling ground at Upton Park, they never really threatened to get involved in the big mix, did they? And even historically, in the decades gone by, I was having a look at the history of the club before. They've won a few trophies well back in the day, but they've never won the league. They won the second division, now the championship 2-3 times or something, the FA Cup, bits and pieces, Cup Winners' Cup once, I think, but they've never been up there with the major big boys. And all the talk of the West Ham of old, West Ham winning the World Cup for England, etc. Okay, there's something in that, but it's all a little bit of time clouds the memory sometimes a little bit, or affects the judgment. And they're just another competitor in the Premier League. They're not competing to win it, but they'll be disappointed where they are right now. But they're a fully fledged Premier League club, aren't they? Have been for many, many years, and will continue to be so, more than likely. I think they'll get themselves out of major trouble at some stage. They need to do it quickly.
And they have got a lot of exciting players in their squad, young players. Declan Rice, widely regarded as a really, really, really good young prospect here in England. He actually captains West Ham United this afternoon. How good do you think he is?
I think he's a top-class player, don't get me wrong. He's a very good player, come a long way in a very short space of time. I think he's a bit over-trumped, if I'm honest. How amazing he is right now. He's efficient, and he's done well to develop his game. He can play for centre-half, and I remember he came in early on and had a couple of iffy performances, more through bad luck than anything. He had a couple of deflected own goals and a couple of little rash challenges, whatever. He's learning his trade a bit. He's been moved into midfield, and strangely, it suited him, because not many centre-halves can drift into midfield. It's a different territory altogether in there. But yeah, I have to commend him for how efficient he's been. He's not a world beater, etc., but he's not in the team to do that. He's in the team to hold things together, and he does it very well. At this moment in time, give me Wilfred Ndidi any day.
Yeah, how important is the battle then today in that midfield? So you've got Declan Rice in there, you've got Carlos Sanchez in there, up against the likes of Hamza Chowdhury and Pathy Mendy.
As always, it's hugely influential on the outcome bearing of a game, isn't it? That midfield area, a lot of people say it's won and lost there. To a degree, that's often the case. But big emphasis and a big onus on not just Chowdhury but Mendy as well. Sorry, because Mendy in particular, he's been out of the frame for such a long time, and basically you're thinking he's on his way. He's not going to be involved anymore. Not only is he back on the bench, he's in the first team starting. How will his fitness be? By today's standards, it's probably more than fine. The way they train him, they manage to keep him in tip-top shape. It's got to be questionable in terms of his durability. But in there, they can only really play one way, both him and Hamza. They'll sit there and hold, give it nice and easy, break up play. Not overly creative between the two of them. That's for the boys in front to do. But I'm sure they'll cope admirably.
Well, the manager, Brendan Rodgers, has been speaking, of course, ahead of this game at the London Stadium, and it's said that those last two results were all about taking some perspective as this season as a whole.
It's a very quick turnaround, less than 48 hours, but like I say, you just press the reset button again, get back to your basics, and like I say, tough lessons for us in the last two games, but like I say, the perspective that I have is based around the first part of the season as a whole, which has been very, very good. But now we have to continue with that and get our confidence back and look to win the next game.
Yeah, what kind of test do you expect at the London Stadium?
Tough game, I think, physically, obviously, with the turnaround. And with the games, like I say, so close together. But like I say, we put out a team to play with energy and quality and hopefully get the result.
Welcome back to Matchday Live on LCFC Radio here at the London Stadium. It's all gone very quiet inside the London Stadium. That's because currently the big screens are paying tribute to former West Ham man Martin Peters, who sadly died. It's West Ham's first home game since his passing. He's on the front of the programme here at West Ham United. They've just had Jeff Hurst out onto the side of the pitch here at the London Stadium to be interviewed about Martin Peters, of course. Both of those players famously scoring goals in the 1966 World Cup final. Hurst got 3, Peters got the other, and there's huge applause now inside the London Stadium for Martin Peters. I think there's another big tribute to happen just before kick-off as well here, but Matt, one quick word on him before we do the final previews of today's game. A very sad passing for English football, that, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's a lovely tribute to Martin Peters. The video on the screen there that's going up at either end of the pitch. Jeff Hurst, amongst others, staring up at it and taking it all in. Pictures there of Hurst, Peters, and Bobby Moore. Sadly, 2 of them now departed, and it must be difficult for Jeff Hurst down there, but as you would expect, huge respect for Martin Peters. I only bumped into him once, and he's very polite, and as he semi-recognised me and said hello, that was it. But you know, he seemed a real gentleman from what you hear, as well as a top-class footballer, and it's a sad loss.
Yeah, the 2 screens to our left and right-hand side also have a picture of Martin Peters. It just said a true West Ham legend and a true gentleman, which I think gives a sense of the type of man that he was, and I'm sure he will be missed by everyone here at West Ham United and the London Stadium. The teams are already in the tunnel, though, here at the London Stadium for this Premier League clash between West Ham United and Leicester City. West Ham manager Manuel Pellegrini is already out pitch side. The players yet to follow him, which means it's time to hand over to our commentary team. A reminder before we do go, though, that our feed will stop if you're listening in on social media. Just before kick-off, you'll need to head to lcfc.com/radio to listen to all 90 minutes, and then, of course, all the post-match reaction after full time. It's time to hand you over now to Matt Elliott and James Fielder.
Madison! Oh, that is absolutely brilliant! And it's a beauty! Jamie Vardy again for Leicester City. He's up and running. What a fantastic goal!
Touch, back of the net. Come on!
What a delightful goal that is for Jamie Vardy!
All the games, all the goals, and all the big moments. You're listening to LCFC Radio.
Hello, good evening everyone, and welcome along to the London Stadium here in Stratford. Brendan Rodgers Fox's final Premier League game of 2019 is here in the capital's East End as West Ham United host Leicester City. As the guys were just touching on, a sombre mood here ahead of kick-off. Tributes to come to the late Martin Peters, who sadly died recently after the defeat to Liverpool 2 nights ago. Leicester boss Brendan Rodgers said he'd switch things around with the players' welfare in mind, and he's been true to his word as he makes a number of changes for the game here tonight. The Foxes now looking for a first win in 4 games after losing back-to-back matches against last season's top 2, and at a stadium where they nicked a point in the last minute last season thanks to Harvey Barnes. They'll be hopeful of a more simple result this time around to further solidify second after Manchester City's defeat at Molineux against Wolves last night. 2 sides making their way out onto the field of play here at the London Stadium, which is just about full. A big bumper crowd in for this final home game of the year for West Ham United, who are in troubled times right now. A last-minute defeat to London rivals Crystal Palace 2 days ago made it 6 defeats in 8 games for Manuel Pellegrini's side, with multiple questions never far away about the Chilean's future in East London. He continues to plod on, but his team have lost their last 3 on their own patch, which hasn't helped his cause, shipping 3 goals in each of them, and they are just a place and a point above the Premier League drop zone. In terms of the team news today, multiple changes made, as we were just saying. 7 made for West Ham United. They line up with Fredericks at right back, Diop, Balbuena and Masuaku ahead of the goalkeeper Fabianski, who comes back in, having been out since the end of September with a thigh problem. Sanchez, Rice and Fornals, the midfield 3. Felipe Anderson and Manuel Lanzini supporting Sebastian Haller in attack. Leicester City have made 9 changes. The only players that keep their place in the Liverpool defeat are Kasper Schmeichel and Johnny Evans. Wes Morgan comes into the side to skipper the team. James Justin makes his first Premier League start at right back, while Christian Fuchs plays at left back. It's Nampalys Mendy and Hamza Chowdhury in the middle of midfield. Gray, Ayoze Perez and Albrighton ahead of them. Kelechi Iheanacho starting up front. We'll see what exactly the formation is they line up in just a few moments' time. The teams have just gone through the handshakes. No Jamie Vardy today, as the guys were saying in the build-up to this one. He misses today's game after his wife Rebecca gave birth to a baby girl, so congratulations to them. He's not involved, as you might understand. Ricardo Pereira is also missing. He's got a tight hamstring, while Dennis Pratt is also not involved here today. The Leicester City bench is Danny Ward, the goalkeeper, Ben Chilwell, Shagla Soyuncu, Yuri Tielemans, James Maddison, Harvey Barnes and Wilfred Ndidi. So very much a changed team for Leicester City here today, and it will be interesting to see just how they get on. Obviously, this game coming just 48 hours after the game on Boxing Day, or less than if you like, because of the fact it was an 8 o'clock kickoff. Time here in London, just coming up to 5:30 in the evening. The bubble machines are blowing all around us here, spraying hundreds of bubbles into the air, trying to get this crowd revved up. But Matt Elliott, this a stadium that if you can really put them on the back foot, the crowd will turn very, very quickly.
Yeah, well, especially the way results have gone for West Ham over, well, not just recent games, over a reasonable period of time, but they're doing their best to crank up the atmosphere, and to an extent it's working, although you feel it's not as authentic as it was back at the old stadium, that's for sure. Crowd are not as condensed, even though there's a good few tens of thousands more of them. It is an impressive sight, but atmospheres are better generated when results are going well on the pitch, and they haven't been for the Hammers.
They haven't been. They've won us twice in 8 games so far this season here on their own patch. The two sides lining up around the centre circle at the moment, because there is going to be a tribute to Martin Peters, who sadly died on the 21st of December. A 1965 UEFA Cup Winners' Cup winner, and of course one of the World Cup heroes of 1966. He scored 100 goals in 364 games for the Hammers. There is a floral shirt tribute here, and former players joining him, or joining the ceremony, on the pitch. Ronnie Boyce, Brian Deere, Ken Brown and Eddie Bovington all marching out there at the moment, saluting one of the England and West Ham greats of the past. And ahead of kick-off here at the London Stadium, there is going to be a minute's applause on the referee's whistle. Jeff Hurst, of course, out there as well, the hero from that 66 final. And now the London Stadium will rise as one and salute the late, great Martin Peters. Around 60,000 people rising as one around us here, including everyone in the media area, to show their respects to Martin Peters, MBE, who sadly died just before Christmas.
Well, very impressive, James, wasn't it? Quite an accolade, really, but a very deserved one. The whole stadium there, as you say, 60,000 plus, it seems, all standing as one. But unfortunately, another sad day.
We are underway. Leicester City get us started here in their home kit this evening. Blue shirts, white shorts, white socks, attacking the opposite end to where the 3,000 or so Leicester fans are, away to our right-hand side. The Leicester City players hugging and congratulating one another on the pitch at the moment. It is a big 3 points for them on the road. Damari Gray missing a penalty as early as the 12th minute. Ian Acho put them ahead on 40. Pablo Fornals with the equaliser for West Ham in the final few seconds of the first half. But Damari Gray's strike 11 minutes into the second half has given Brendan Rodgers much change side the victory here on the road in East London. They finished 2019 with a win, a first win in 4 Premier League games as well. It has finished here at the London Stadium. West Ham United 1, Leicester City 2.
Thanks, James. Yes, stay with us for full-time analysis as Leicester win and get back to winning ways in the Premier League. Matt Elliott's going to stay with us for a little while in London as well, and I'm joined by Jerry Taggart and Mickey Adams in the studio at the King Power Stadium. Into the 97th minute at Carrow Road, where it's Norwich City 2, Tottenham Hotspur 2. Vrancic gave Norwich the lead. Eriksson equalised for Spurs with a free kick. Then Aurier own goal gave Norwich the lead again, and Harry Kane looks like he has rescued a point for Spurs on the road in that one. And then the late game in the Premier League is at Turf Moor. It's Burnley against Manchester United. But back to the game we've been focused on today. West Ham 1, Leicester City 2. Jerry Taggart, they're back to winning ways.
Absolutely. And at half-time, you know, we spoke about not changing too much, and that was exactly the case, and that's what sort of led up to the second goal. You know, finding that space in the middle of the park. Elsie Perez, great bit of play from him.